I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Statement of values. As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and the will to perform our obligations and our duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and with respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, roll call.
That list again.
Here. Maybe this will help.
Okay. Commissioner Jane?
Here.
Commissioner Salim? Commissioner Chahal?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly is not here. Chairperson Akesi?
Here.
And I'm Commissioner Michael Halloran.
Thank you.
Missing Steve Kelly.
Let's just wait for, before we excuse anybody. Okay, moving on to declaration of commission procedures. Okay, public hearings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. The chair of the commission directs all activity during the hearings. All comments shall be addressed to the commission. Any item on this agenda may be continued to a subsequent hearing. Applicants will be allotted up to 10 minutes to present and justify proposals following staff presentation of the item. Other speakers will be given up to 4 minutes. The applicant is allotted up to 5 minutes for rebuttal of comments. No additional comments will be accepted upon the close of the public hearing, although the commission reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. Special procedures and time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the chair. An appeal of commission actions must be filed in writing within 7 calendar days. Okay, let's move on to consent calendar.
Okay. On the consent calendar, we have the Planning Commission minutes for March 14th, 2018.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Jane. Oh,
Yeah,
I guess I need to press this, right? Oh, that's right.
Okay. At the Planning Commission meeting, we had a discussion about changing some zoning around live music at venues, and that is not reflected at all in the minutes. And I had emailed staff about that, and I guess they were supposed to be updated, but I didn't see an update.
Are you looking at the printout?
Oh, no. I'm looking at the thing that I got in the mail.
There is a copy of the updated minutes on your desk.
Oh, I didn't get a copy, did I?
And the updated minutes is
didn't see the
posted
minutes.
on our website, right?
Not yet, but they will be posted.
Okay.
They're not on the website, because I had just looked on the website.
Oh.
Okay, that's why.
Okay.
So there's a printed copy, which I don't have. Or do I?
So, yeah,
Oh, okay.
page 2. The bottom.
Okay. So I guess we're at the next available agenda at this point, and it didn't happen. So my question is, when will it?
It will be added to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, would anyone like to make, if somebody wants to make a motion, then,
Press that.
you need to,
You don't have.
oh, okay. All right, so I recognize Commissioner Chahal.
I was not here in the last meeting, so I'll abstain from that.
Got it, thank you. Okay, would anyone like to make any motion by pressing the speakers button? Okay, Commissioner Jane is recognized.
I move to approve the amended minutes as printed out here.
Okay, any seconds?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have Commissioner Jane making a motion and Commissioner O'Halloran seconding. Are we ready to vote? Maybe in 1 second.
We have a new system
I haven't
here,
seen it
so-
yet. Did it show up? I don't see it.
Bummer.
Oh, okay. It's not on my
Didn't show up.
screen.
Didn't show up on my screen.
But, okay, can we do it by hand or? Okay, all right.
That's what-
All in, sure. Commissioner,
Minutes, yeah.
Not yet.
That's why I'm abstaining.
Okay, if you want to verbally vote, I can record them for you. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have 4 votes.
One abstain.
Yeah.
Are there any continuances? Or did we go through that already?
Oh, shoot, all right.
Missed it.
Continuances and exceptions. Any continuances and exceptions? Okay, none. All right, let's move on to items set for hearing then.
The first item relates to Corvin Avenue. Let me get it here. It's a tentative subdivision map for 2961 Corvin Drive.
Yes, Staff Abby.
Thank you. Just wanted to let the applicant know that because there are only 5 commissioners present, we always give the applicant the opportunity to request a continuance. When there are only 5 commissioners present, 4 votes are needed to pass any motion.
Thank you very much. Would the applicant like to continue the item or proceed with the hearing?
We're fine proceeding.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, maybe now that we're here starting the hearing, maybe we should excuse. Would anyone like
I'll
to
make a motion that we
to-
excuse Commissioner Kelly.
Second that?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, would the staff like to present?
Thank you. Chair Ikezi and members of the commission, the application before you this evening is a request for a vesting tentative subdivision map at 2961 Corvin Drive. And just wanted to show you the existing site plan that's proposed for the project, which was already approved, and I'll explain this process during the presentation, is the vesting subdivision map is before you this evening, and it's to create 7 buildable lots and 2 non-buildable lots. Those are the driveway areas that would support a total of 38 residential dwelling units. They would be condominium units. They're proposed in 7 buildings, and this project has been approved through the architectural review process, which is the entitlement mechanism for the Lawrence Station area plan. This property is in the LSAP area, and just to give you some background, I believe some of the commissioners may not have been on, or one of you may have not been on the commission at the time the project was adopted. But the Lawrence Station area plan is a specific plan, and it was approved in 2017. It includes approximately 65 acres of land. It was previously zoned for industrial uses. The mixed-use areas within the specific plan allow for a combination of uses, including residential, commercial, and it allows the continuation of the industrial as well. It allows a total of 3,500 residential units of mixed densities, and it ranges from low to very high density. For the total 65-acre area, it's anticipated the full build-out is 104,000 square feet of commercial space, and there's also 6 acres of open space. And to date, we have approximately 1,088 residential units, including the project before you, and 25,000 square feet of commercial approved within the LSAP area. So we're about 1/3 the way through that specific plan maximum build-out. This is the project that was reviewed by the Architectural Committee. It shows a grid pattern for the layout. It was approved on February 21st of this year. It's approximately 1.69 acres. It is, like, as I mentioned, it's in the LSAP area. It falls within the medium-density residential range of 20 to 36 units per gross acre, and the proposal with the 38 units on the 1.69 acre site results in 23.47 units to the acre. So it's on the lower end of the scale. It also complies with all the development requirements of and development standards in the LSAP area plan, and for that reason, it was approved by the Architectural Committee. This is a rendering of the elevation, so they'll be grouped together. They're townhouses, and they have a combination of 2 bedrooms up to 4 bedrooms, and they range between 1,200 square feet and a little over 2,000 square feet. Each property has a 2-car garage. Some are in side-by-side configuration, others are in tandem configuration. And there is a required guest parking space. So this area, you can see a little bit of an orange outline of the area. That's the 65-acre site area that encompasses the LSAP, and then the red square is the project site. And it's between Corbin and Calabasas. So with that, the vesting tentative subdivision map is the mechanism that is required in order to allow the construction to take place and the units to be made for sale. So we are asking the commission to adopt a resolution that would be forwarded to the city council recommending approval and adoption of the tentative subdivision map. And with that, I'll conclude and answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let me look at my, oops. Okay, Commissioner Jane.
The first thing is I got a text from Steve Kelly. He had to get a jump for his car, so
Oh,
he's
geez.
on his way.
Oh, so he's on his way?
Yes, I just got a text from him. The second question I have is in attachment 2 in the document, it says that it's 32 units of development, and everywhere else it says 38.
It's 38.
Okay, so that probably should be corrected in the documents. That's in attachment 2. And then you had mentioned that there was guest parking. I was wondering how much guest parking there was?
It's 10% of the requirement.
10%, okay. So that's 10% of 76, so 7 or 8 parking, or is that 10% of 38?
There's 7 parking spaces.
So it's 10% of the number of cars, so, yeah, so it should be 8, yeah. Okay, then, sorry. Okay, yeah, that's all I had.
Hey, great. Anyone else? Okay, would the applicant like to present?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jonathan Fern, Vice President of Development with Summerhill Homes. Because this is just an approval of a map, we've, as staff has said previously, the project has already been approved. We don't really have a presentation for you guys tonight, but we're certainly here. Our team is here to answer any questions that you may have. To Commissioner Jane's question about the guest parking, I'm not aware of that 10% requirement for the guest parking, but we do have 7 spaces. I don't think there's a 10% requirement under the LSAP parking.
Okay, would the member of the public like to speak? Okay. Motion to close public?
I had a question for the applicant.
Oh, you do? Okay, great. Sorry, I didn't, did you press your button?
Yes, it's
Okay,
there.
it doesn't pop up. Oh, I know why, because I have another document open. Oh, okay, so Commissioner Jane.
I had a question about why you chose to put so few units on this property, since you're allowed to put more units, and developers always want to put more units on there. You're at the lower level of what's allowed.
Well, part of it is just the site solution, the product that we've chosen. We've chosen a townhome product, and to be quite honest, we've basically put as many on the site as we can to actually meet all the requirements, but we are above, obviously, the minimum threshold.
Okay. The other question is, I'm pleased to see that you have a 12-foot bike trail allocated along Calabasas Creek there. Have you looked at the 1,000-year flood maps for that zone, that area, to see whether you're high enough to accommodate climate change and so on?
We have looked at that, yes.
Okay. And will the trail be flooded? Do you have any idea, or is?
I don't believe so, no.
Because we have a problem with our existing trail, San Tomas Aquino. Every time there's a big storm, there's a bunch of mud on the trail, and we have to close the trail and so on. So, I believe that's all I have for this.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Nope. All right, motion to close public hearing?
So moved. Oh, I'm sorry. I have one more question. Okay. Because you're putting this in 7 lots, buildable lots, will there be one HOA for the whole thing?
Correct.
And so what is the motivation for 7 lots rather than 1 lot for the whole thing?
Well, there's 7 different buildings.
Okay.
So each building would need its own separate parcel.
I see. Okay. But you could do it with, you could put multiple buildings on one parcel, right?
I suppose you could.
I believe lots of developers do that.
I think it's easier to sell when they have their own individual parcels.
So you would be, but within each parcel, there's multiple units.
That's correct.
And these are for sale units, right?
correct.
They're condos. So you're still selling one condo within part of a parcel, and it would still have to be sort of approved by the HOA, right?
None of the sales would have to be approved by the HOA, obviously, because we would be selling them, and then the HOA would be taking over after we've sold out.
Correct.
But we would need to, in order to sell individual buildings, we would need to parcel off those different buildings so we can sell those as standalone structures. So it's a little more challenging with
But you would be selling individual units, like you have 7 parcels and 38, so you have about 6 per parcel, right?
Right.
But you're selling individual units within that.
So that's correct.
Okay. Okay, I was just trying to understand the motivation for having 7 parcels instead of 1 for the whole thing.
Yeah, I just think it's,
Because it's one HOA and so,
correct. Yeah, it's just, I think from a sale perspective, in essence, you could take it from just an extreme. If we just stop building, we could still sell 5 in essence and have 2 not sold, but it wouldn't affect the legality of those other parcels, and nor would it affect the sale of those units or in those parcels itself.
I see. Okay, thank you.
So you're going to construct this in phases? Is that the plan?
We can construct it in phases. We most likely will not because there's only 38 units. We'll probably build them all at the same time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, motion to close public hearing from anyone? Oh. Oh, okay. All right, so we have Commissioner Chahal making the motion to close the public hearing and Commissioner O'Halloran seconding it. Okay, I guess we're gonna vote orally. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay, so discussions. Oh, let me see if I have any. No speakers. Okay, any motion? Oh, yes.
Question. This, because we approved the LSAP, right, and subsequently we passed the Nexus study, are these units subject to Nexus fees?
You mean the affordable housing requirement? I believe these predate the effective date of that application, but they still would have to do the standard 10%. It's just the higher ratio.
Okay, because it's for sale, they have to do the 10% that we already
Yes.
had on the books. Okay, got it.
Okay. Any more questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll move that recommendation from the staff.
Okay. Any seconds?
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner O'Halloran to recommend, wait, are we recommending to the council?
Yes, you're making a
Okay, yeah, we're
recommendation.
recommending to the council to accept the staff recommendation. And we have the second from Commissioner Jane. Okay, any discussion? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Chahal. Any discussions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right, let's go to the next item.
The next item, I'll read that off.
Thank you.
The second item is a second amendment to the development agreement between the city of Santa Clara and SI, I believe, Sobrado Development, and that's to extend the terms of the agreement, development agreement.
Okay, thank you. Would the staff like to present?
We'll just have to wait for the presentation to come up. So, Commissioners, the item before you this evening is an extension of an existing development agreement at property at 2200 Lawson Lane. So this would be a second amendment. There was one prior extension to allow the first phase of the project to be developed. This second amendment to the development agreement is for part of the campus, and this includes the total build-out of 306,900 square feet of office space, and this would be within two 5-story buildings. There's also a little over 17,000 square feet of common space, and the project on this west campus would be developed similar to the original campus that was constructed, and that's at a parking ratio of 4 per thousand. And for the extension of the development agreement, there was also an addendum prepared to the previously adopted environmental impact report. And then for the extension in 2013, that there was a mitigated negative declaration. So that addendum addresses both of those documents and confirms that there's no additional impacts associated with the proposal, and there's been no change to the entitlement, so there's no further expansion beyond the one extension that occurred in the 2013 document. This is the location of the site, and if you see the general plan map to the right, it shows that this is surrounded by high-intensity R&D land use classifications under the general plan, so it's within a lot of other campus developments and ones that are subject to future approvals as well. So this, we're just showing you the approved project. The Phase 1 on the East Campus has been constructed and is occupied. It's a little close, it's close to 9 acres, and it has 2 5-story office buildings. It has the exact same square footage, 306,900 square feet. It's got 2 commons buildings, about 17,000 square feet, and there's a 5-level parking garage and surface parking, and a total of 1,209 parking spaces. Phase 2, which is, you can see to the right, is the area that's yet to be constructed, is 7.19 acres. It's 5-story buildings, again, 2 buildings and 306,000 square feet, and about an 8,000 square foot commons building, and there would be a 4-level parking garage and surface parking and about 1,228 parking spaces. So you see that the combined total is 613,800 square feet. This is basically images of the campus that's currently constructed, and it's occupied by ServiceNow, so it does have 1 tenant. And this has been constructed and occupied. If you've been out there, it's definitely one of our newer developments and very typical of what we're looking for in future projects in the industrial area. And this is a rendering of the proposed area that's still yet to be developed on the West Campus. And you can see the existing site conditions is just basically a clear open space here, and it's ready for development. As we indicated in the staff report, if this extension is granted, they would be moving forward with the building permits very quickly and look to gain construction and approvals, and that they do have a tenant already ready to occupy the property. So the extension of the DA is really just the agreement itself. It would go to City Council, and it would only extend the term of the agreement. No other terms of the development agreement have changed. There's no additional area that's been added to the project. It would just be to allow another 5 years to accomplish the construction of the West Campus. So we're asking for two requests from you this evening, and that is to note and file the addendum. Doesn't require any formal action, but just for you to consider that and note and file the addendum. And then secondly, to adopt a resolution recommending the City Council approve the second amendment to the DA. And with that, I'll conclude and answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner O'Halloran.
Yes, well, the second alternative, we have to give you alternatives, is just to not approve. So that's to deny the extension, to recommend denial of the extension. So that's why our recommendations are to adopt 1, which is the addendum, and then 3 is to approve the extension. Right. Yeah.
Right. Commissioner Chahal?
So if we do not approve, I know it's going to the council, but as
Yes.
From the city point of view, so this development will go away basically, right?
They would not be able to construct the project as you see it. They would have to go through a new plan development approval.
And that will start from scratch.
They could, or they could propose the same project, but yes.
But during this time, let's say it expires in June, are there any changes in the city development fees and other stuff which will apply then versus which are not being applied right now because it's predated?
Well, we have, what's coming forward is an affordable housing impact fee, but if they have a an application on file before August of this year, the end, I believe I forget what, it's some time frame in August. So if they refiled and paid the fee, they would still be exempt from that fee, but there is a per square foot charge that would be applicable after that date if somebody filed and obtained their building permits within 3 years.
So other than that one fee, are there any development charges which might hit to the developer if they start the application again?
No, because even though there's a development agreement, they still pay whatever fees are currently in place. There's nothing in the development agreement that locks them into a fee base that was at the time they obtained the original approval. So a developer always has to pay current fees unless they're stipulated in the development agreement, and that isn't routinely done because they change basically every year. So the developer knows it's really just to vest the entitlement itself. That's the primary purpose of the DA.
They are actually going to get a slight advantage by locking in the amount of the regional traffic fee at $2.50. This is commensurate with what we've charged other developments recently. The council will be considering an increase in that regional traffic fee in June. So this project will not be subject to the increase in the regional traffic fee if you approve this extension of the development agreement.
And that's the 250, it may go higher.
Yeah, it may go higher, but we get the advantage of having this development proceed promptly.
So my question is, we are giving lot of, in case it goes high, or we have some other fees which might be as part of the ordinance after June 2. So we are giving that extension basically for 2 years. They will not be able to, city will not be able to charge anything which you approve after June, basically,
Well,
right?
no, not exactly. Generally applicable new development fees would apply to this development. The regional traffic fee specifically is locked in at $2.50. But if we impose a new fee to all new developments going forward, the actual terms of the DA provide that they would be subject to those new fees. So they're not getting a get-out-of-fee-free card by this extension.
So anything we might have down the line will still be applicable to them from the fees, development fees point of view. It's not that we already crossed we are backdated, grandparented, so that does not apply to them.
Right, so yeah, so just like Xander said, it's the regional traffic fee is the only one that they would have some advantage for. But all the costs for, say, like the sewer hookups, the utility rates for all those are prorated at a current rate when they pull the building permit. So all those land development fees, those are all assessed at the time that the building permit is submitted. So they are always reflecting the current price.
My next question is, I saw the staff report that there is no change in the traffic, does not need to be updated. Like, how do we substantiate that? Because traffic has gone tremendously high since 2013 and other stuff. So why we concur that we do not need the current traffic studies for this project when we are giving an extension on that?
But there's no change in the project itself. So it was assessed at the time that it was considered for 613,000 square feet. So the parameters for the project have not changed. Every project that's approved after this or during this time has assessed this project at 613,000 square feet. So it's taken that number into account and plugged those numbers are reflected in the traffic counts and the information we get from the county. So it's always the pending projects and the approved projects all those numbers are put into the traffic modeling when it's done for any other project around there. But this one has not changed. That's the only reason we would update the traffic information for this project if there was an expansion of the square footage.
But the CEQA clause does allow, if there are substantial changes, we need to have the new EIA report.
Substantial changes to a project, this project, not other projects.
Okay, so you're saying if the accessory things have changed, but not the project has changed, even though traffic has gone too high, but still we will not need any new traffic study for this project?
No, because CEQA accounts for every other project that is approved since 2013 takes into account all the approved projects. So the numbers are reflected on those studies to account for all the development that's been approved or pending. So all of the numbers are constantly being moved up to reflect the current count based on all the development applications that have been approved. So there's no such thing as it moving ahead without accounting for all the development that's been approved.
So hypothetically, let me ask a question. So when would be the situation when we had a new EIR?
That's if there's a substantial change in the project. So say like if they wanted to add another 500,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet, we would have to do something, either an addendum or a supplemental EIR, or if it was enough square footage, a new EIR.
My understanding is that we are approving an EIR and we are not reviewing because we think that there's no substantial change in the project. But right now, the conditions are changed. The EIR does take into account the traffic studies. So even though we are piggybacking on 2013 traffic studies, we are still keep continuing that and grant an extension without any new traffic studies for that project. That's, I have that.
I'm trying to follow your question, but so from 2013, every EIR or mitigated negative declaration includes all the other traffic studies that we've done. So all the new numbers that have been produced, all of those factor into every other document that is prepared, or every other traffic study, because it's reflective of all the development that is pending. It has to anticipate all the future conditions on all projects that have been approved or will be approved. So it's not done in isolation. It's always taken into account everything that's either pending or approved or under construction. It's already, those numbers are consistently being updated.
So if this expires in June, and the applicant comes back with the new application, then they have to submit the new traffic studies, right?
Yes.
So that's my question. Like, we are giving them a leeway of traffic study which is not current, and we are giving them the extension based on the older traffic study. And traffic is number one problem for resident as such. So I would have loved to see the new traffic updates on this project when we are giving them that extension.
The only thing is that, but the addendum identifies that there's no change to the project, therefore there's no additional impact, there's nothing to assess.
But CEQA says so if we approve this project as a new project after June, we need to have the new traffic studies.
Right.
So that we, even though they might come up back with the same project.
Right, that's true.
They will have to come back with the new traffic studies.
Right, but
that will impact the EIR.
No, but that doesn't mean that the traffic numbers are going to change. That just means you have to have a new report. Because we will have now all of the new numbers from every other project around that vicinity that has been approved or is pending. The traffic analysis will take that into effect. But that doesn't change the impact of this project on those intersections, because the number would not have changed from this project if it's the same project that's proposed.
Okay, but the numbers are cumulative. Not only this project, they might not change for this project, but the situation has changed since 2013. So we will have different cumulative numbers.
Yes, if there's more projects approved, the numbers for the intersections could go up. It could be, but that all depends whether the distribution is the same. The distribution may be a little different. There may have been other traffic improvements which helps, and with the TDM measures, there may be other factors that help offset those numbers. We don't know that unless we did a study.
That's exactly, like, we might have a different TDM measures if we have the new one. But we are not asking the applicant to do a new TDM. We are just giving them the old same TDM measures. All the situation has changed. That's my point.
Right. They will still be required to do a TDM. It's just a matter of what those numbers, what that combination is. But the obligation is still the same to reduce by a certain number. That this area has not changed in terms of the TDM reduction of trips. It's still the same ratio based on our general plan.
Okay, thank you.
So what I think I'm hearing is that the background condition may change if they were to do the traffic study
Yes.
now. Okay. But the impact of the project itself will not change unless they make the changes to the project itself.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. May I ask if you can try turning off one of the mics on your
I
table?
tried and I wasn't able to.
Didn't work?
Oh, I'm sorry. One minute. Maybe I just didn't press hard enough.
Didn't make any difference. Oh, yeah, it could be that one. It's so strange. Oh. Oh, thank you. Okay. All right, Commissioner O'Halloran.
Yes, I hate to say it, but I have basically the same questions. I didn't want to interrupt Commissioner Jahal, but let me ask these questions. There's two items. This whole thing started off for approvals in 2008. And then it was just, because I imagine the agreement says, well, you got another 5 years option to do it. So we're asking go beyond the next 5 years, asking 2 more years. So I have an issue with that in terms of our whole process. What was the difference between the 2008 and the 2013? Was there a change of any traffic in the program?
I can answer that. The 2013 amendment expanded one of the campuses by about 100,000 square feet. In 2008, an EIR was prepared for the project. In 2013, an MND was prepared to analyze that additional impact caused by the addition of the square footage. So that was analyzed at that time.
Okay. So did that affect, so what about people who had come in later and gotten something approved and had a traffic study for their project? You're saying this one now had a new traffic study, which we're saying it did not affect the subsequent projects from somebody else. They started out with, let's say, 500,000. There was a certain traffic impact measured there. And then in the meantime, somebody else came with another proposal, and we assumed the same traffic impact of 500,000 and applied it to that new project. Is that how it's going?
Yes.
But in the
yes.
meantime, then they came back in 2013 and asked for a larger project,
Right.
which would have new traffic mitigation numbers. And so that project that got approved in the meantime is, questionable now whether they had enough traffic impact. It seems like we.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if we know a project is coming in and a TIA is under review, usually the traffic engineers check a couple of times to see whether, and they obtain all the pending and approved projects list from us routinely. So they're getting the updates, they're updated monthly. It's up to them whether they want to or adjust the numbers, and sometimes they will just to be on the.
Being Sobrato in this case?
Well, whoever would, say like you said, say somebody nearby was doing a traffic study and they were using the 500 number, and then they found out that another 100,000 was being offered. They will oftentimes adjust those numbers because just to make sure they capture everything, so it is reflective of.
They may have had it gotten
Yeah.
approved before Sobrato came in with another 100,000.
Yes, or if it's in the works. The only thing is that under the traffic study, the guidance for sequence, it's really a point in time, the point in
Right.
time to the best of your ability that this information is here. But I think 100,000 overall with all the development, we have about 21 million square feet of entitled office space. 100,000 is not going to make that much difference. But the next developments would reflect all that current methodology. So, I mean, in the modeling.
So they could all come in with another 100,000.
Yes, they could, but again.
My concern is
yeah.
just that we have these ongoing, basically it's on hold. Sobrato has this asset that they're sitting on for 10 years. And with the idea that, well, maybe things will change, but we can go back to whatever we had. So you've got a defined asset there, and it's holding up anybody else.
It's not holding anybody up because anybody who does a study has to show the full build out. So they have to. And
Well, that's what's holding them up. I mean, they can come back and say, we only have 400,000, so it doesn't have an impact. But you've made the judgment based on Sobrato has this, you have this. So they've got to take into account Sobrato's numbers.
Yes.
And so they may have to limit their project because of that.
I don't, I wouldn't characterize it that way. That's not what happens. What happens is usually you're just looking at how to mitigate. So it's not like if somebody, there's not like a limit and then all of a sudden everyone, we do have a limit based on the general plan classifications, and we anticipate so much build out based upon the available FAR and density, residential densities. There was like a ceiling that the EIR for the general plan was done. But that doesn't necessarily require somebody to scale back their project. We have not had that happen. So usually what we're doing is if there is, the ceiling is getting higher and higher and we're getting more and more congestion, then there's more mitigation on that.
On the new guy.
On the new developments, right.
So they may have to hold back their project while they're waiting to see what Sobrato does.
No,
Or
that's,
because they knew what Sobrato is going to do. So they have to realize that there was going to be this impact.
yeah.
Sobrato already took that opportunity, got the approvals and the entitlement.
Well, I would not characterize it that way. That's not how, nobody holds up their development because somebody else is building.
But could the person who comes later end up paying more in mitigation because?
No.
No.
No, because their project will only generate so much trips and have so much impact. If their project, is causing a greater delay, yes, say like we get to an intersection that has a level of service E or D, and then they're causing a significant delay, then they would be responsible for, say, a higher share of traffic mitigation. If there's a project involved, such as widening an intersection, something of that nature. But again, we're going now to level, rather than level of service, we're going to basically a qualitative review of traffic impacts. So.
Next one, the one that hasn't been voted.
Yes. So it's going to be, so that delay is no longer going to be a consideration for traffic impacts because there's other ways to measure, traffic flows and that's being considered more of a common expectation for a developed area. So and we're looking at multimodal transportation and what are the service levels and safety of other modes of travel besides cars. So level of service only deals with vehicles. It doesn't take into account people who walk or bike or transit.
And again, just to follow up on Commissioner Chahal, so this 250 square foot is an old number, or it could be an old number. The $2, $2.50 per square foot for phase two. If we did not approve it today and they had to come back and put it brand new, they'd have to come up with whatever the new fee is.
Whatever the new fee is, yes.
And they're able to hold it for 10 years. In terms
5
of not
years.
changing their-
5 years. Yeah, I mean 5-year
Okay,
extension.
so the fees changed in the 2013 number then?
I don't know if they changed then.
Well, I mean, theoretically, they could have changed.
In 2013, there was no regional traffic fee. So now we are imposing a $2.50 regional traffic fee. It will likely be increased to something like $4, maybe more in June.
My concern is that you can just hold up 10 years and keep your old fees, and you have an incentive to do that. What about the other fees? You said there were the water connection fees and some other fees. These will be at the current rate?
Yes.
Every other fee besides that 250?
Right, like
is
the
at
building
current-
permit fees, they're all based on valuations that they get at the current rate.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner? Commissioner Jane. Oh,
I haven't figured it out.
multitasking is a challenge. Yes, Commissioner Jane, you are recognized.
I reduced it to 0. I am still unclear on the concept of a development agreement. I know you've been through this before. A development agreement is a voluntary agreement by the project developer to lock in entitlements. Is that correct? And it's in that negotiation that we are able to impose other restrictions like higher numbers for affordable housing, and we can, for say, if it were before we had the nexus fee, if it were a rental property, we could impose affordable housing
Correct.
limits on that, correct?
Exactly. Without a
So-
development agreement, we have to have a nexus between the
Correct,
exaction we
correct.
impose and the impacts of the development. There's
Correct.
no such constraint in a DA.
Correct. So now that we have a DA from basically 2008 and 2013, they have locked in certain entitlements and certain fees, is that correct?
Yes.
And that means that their TDM measures are locked in from an earlier time before we had extreme traffic. Their fees are locked in from an earlier time. And by basically extending this, we're basically giving them a free ride. And I'm not comfortable with that. I think traffic, you know, as the other commissioners have said, traffic is a huge problem in the Bay Area. You know, when I look at a $2.50 per square foot resulting in $760,000, that's one traffic light in Santa Clara. It costs that much money. So this fee, and it has already been determined by our traffic department that we currently undercharge fees. And that's come out in city council meetings, and I've spoken on that, and I'm just not happy that here we are giving them a free ride for another 5 years based on an old development agreement. And so I don't see.
A reminder, this is the time for questions and not to
Yeah.
make any opinions about the
Okay.
project until
Okay.
after the close of the public
Okay.
hearing.
So the question that I have here is in the 2013 MND, it says that the campus may be built for LEED Gold standards. And I'm wondering if we did a new development agreement, could we require that it be LEED Gold?
From a legal perspective, of course.
Okay.
Commissioner Jane, I mean, technically, you could even make that recommendation to city council. You wouldn't even need a new DA. You could just ask for an amendment to it to
Yeah.
require that. So you could make
Right,
that recommendation.
right. But it seems to me that TDM measures and fees have been locked in because we have an old development agreement. And I'm just confirming that that seems to be
Yes.
what happens when you enter into a DA. Is that correct? That's correct,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
That's all I had.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah.
Oh. Commissioner Salem.
So since this is the question period, what are the immediate implications of denying the amendment?
If you deny the application tonight, the
We'll
DA
recommend denial.
will expire on June 5th,
Fifth.
something like that. This is actually a recommendation
Right.
to the city council, so the city council will still consider it actually on Tuesday. So if you recommend denial, they will consider that when they vote to either approve or deny. But if they follow your recommendation and deny it, the DA will expire on June 5th. They will then have a PD zoning, but no development agreement. So any of the benefits of the existing DA will no longer apply to the city. They may still be able to develop, though, frankly.
Right, for the
because
vested right.
a
Yeah.
PD zoning vests after construction begins or 2 years. If construction doesn't begin within 2 years, PD zoning expires.
But more than
In
half
this
of it has
case,
already been built.
construction
Yeah.
started years ago. They built half the development. So in this case, the PD would actually not expire. They've still got the existing PD zoning. So they may even be able to still build. But there are terms of the DA that apply to the city that we would no longer get. I was actually trying to, you mentioned the TDM, I was trying to remember if there was actually a
Yeah, I'm not sure.
TDM language in
We
here.
were asking for TDMs, perhaps in the 2013 expansion, because Prior to that, we did not have that requirement, but we were asking for TDMs prior to the climate action plan. But they were usually about a 10% reduction. Now we have a specific number, a ratio that has to be implemented based upon the location.
Here it is. So there is currently a condition that the developer shall implement the transportation demand management program that includes elements to reduce vehicle trips by 5%. So correct me if I'm wrong, this is a general plan designation of light industrial, is that correct?
No, it's
Office
high
R&D,
high density
office
R&D.
R&D. So I'm just saying, the climate action plan contains requirements that are not that different than what's required by the DA already. They're required to do a TDM plan of 5% under that condition. The climate action plan would require them to do, I'll check on that and get back to you. My point is, they may still be able to develop. There are things we would potentially lose. But practically, it's just a 2-year extension, and there weren't a lot of conditions either way in this DA.
Yeah, it really just vested the gross square footage. I didn't see a lot of, distinction in here. Normally, we have more elements in a DA, but not as applicable to an office development compared to a residential where there's more fees involved. But this is primarily just the gross square footage is what the primary purpose of the DA was.
I wish I had a clearer answer for you. I apologize for that.
Okay, in the meantime, Commissioner Jane?
Yeah, I'm confused about what rights or privileges the city would lose in a denial.
Well, I would have to basically summarize for you the points of the 2008 development agreement. If you want me to give you a brief rundown on what those benefits are, we could take a 5-minute recess and I could just...
No, I don't need the
We can ask
specifics.
the applicant to
I'm just, I'm weighing sort of I'm always, of course, my responsibility is to consider the interest of the city. And since certain fees and certain rights are locked in from an earlier time in a DA that if they were to expire might benefit the applicant, and then there are certain rights that benefit the city, I'm wondering that if we were to deny, then it goes to PD. I'm still confused about what the city loses in that process.
If there are any terms in the DA that are not conditions of the PD zoning, then those terms would expire with the DA. So, for instance, there was a development agreement with Agilent last year where the council decided not to extend it, and we discovered after the fact that we actually ended up giving up certain, I think it was a trail, something like that.
Actually, it was a substation, a property. Substation. It was a substation that was needed for SVP because of the lack of connection of service out in that area by Lawrence and Stevens Creek Boulevard. So they were going to sell it at I think, below market rate to SVP.
Now, all PD zonings have conditions of approval. So if the things in the DA are also conditions of the PD zoning, then they would still be required to fulfill those conditions.
Do you know if they are?
I don't know if one for one all the terms in the DA are conditions of the PD zoning. I mean, I think one of the major things they were required to do under this one was pay a certain traffic fee, and I know they did actually pay the fee. That's already done. It was several $100,000. That was the local traffic fee, and so this would subject them to the regional.
So should we do a 5-minute recess and then maybe?
Well, why don't
can
you
do the
proceed
clerk?
with the hearing, because the
Okay.
applicant may actually be more
Sure.
familiar with some of
Sure.
these terms than
Okay.
me.
Let's do that.
But I still am unclear on this. I think Gloria had mentioned that in approving or recommending a addendum or an extension of the DA, we can put conditions on there. Or we can recommend conditions on there, like recommending that they go to lead gold for certain. Is that correct?
It's a DA, you can ask for a Ferris wheel. I mean,
Okay.
all you have to do is get the applicant to agree.
Correct.
And depending, you don't want to create a new impact, obviously, that would impact the environmental.
Sure, sure. But we could, in our approval tonight, add conditions, and if the applicant agrees, then those stand. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
If the council, if the council accepts your recommendation in whole.
of course, yeah.
But to make those recommendations, it would be good to know what's in the DA right now, so, and the PD,
Fair point.
PD requirements, so, okay, conditions. Okay, who's this? Is that you? Okay, nobody else
Trying to
needs
use
to
two
speak. Let me
systems.
look at my panel too. Okay, I don't see anybody. So would the applicant like to speak and maybe address some of our questions?
He has a different one.
There you are.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. I'm Peter Ty with the Sobrato organization. I know there's a lot of questions here about, extending the DA and kind of restarting the clock again. Our intention when we bought this campus, in 08 was to create a corporate campus. It was our intent when ServiceNow moved into the East Campus to give them the opportunity to expand onto the West Campus and keep, a Santa Clara-based company here in Santa Clara. And so that's why we never developed the West phase. We wanted to work with the tenant ServiceNow to create the extension campus for them. And so, sometimes timing doesn't work out exactly. And in this case, we started the discussions with them, about a couple months ago. And so that's when we were really kind of starting to think, okay, we need to extend this DA to allow ourselves the time to keep this tenant here in Santa Clara, to give them, the space that they need. They are a high growth company. They are, well established here. They're part of the community. They want to continue to be part of the community. And we want to kind of fulfill that need for them. And so, in an ideal world, we would have, built this campus for them a couple years ago. But, with the fluctuations in the economy, it just, the stars didn't align until now. And that's really kind of where we're sitting at right now. So the reason why we're asking for, a 2-year extension versus what's typically like a 5 or a 10 is we want to see if we can, fulfill what was originally planned in the original DA, which was a corporate campus at this location. And so giving us 2 years allows us that time to work this out with the tenant and, hopefully build the West Campus and fulfill the original intent of the DA. So, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have our land use attorney here to also answer questions that you may have.
Thank you. Okay, for today, let's stick to the lighting because I'm just having a hard time keeping track of this and this. Okay, Commissioner O'Halloran, would the applicant like to remain on the podium to answer questions? Thank you.
I apologize that I don't have all the information from the first request. Is there, the plan, it went from light industrial to basically a mixed opportunity that you could put in residential, and there's some parks. Are there any residentials in the new proposal?
No, this is strictly office, high-density office.
Were there any parks involved?
Parks where there's open space.
Okay, that's what I meant.
Yeah, there's open space for the tenant use, correct?
And when you say you're asking for 2 years and not 5, is that 2 years definite? Because that's my issue, is that we're
Yes.
giving you something for 10 years and you're asking more and more, and
There-
everything is tied up until your 10 years is up.
It was always our intent to come in with the 2 because it's for this expansion option.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, Commissioner Jay.
So this is turning into a fairly large campus with the 2 halves of it. And I'm concerned about traffic impacts. I know the EIR says that it will have reasonable impacts, but what I see now is that if you look at what Google is doing in the north of Bayshore, and you look at what LinkedIn is doing and Facebook, they're all doing substantial mitigations for traffic. And to me, 5% VMT just is not sufficient in this era. I mean, Santa Clara is growing like crazy, and I already see that Central Expressway is jammed and San Tomas is jammed. So can you explain to me what the current traffic mitigation that you're doing, and how many electric vehicle chargers you're installing, and how many bike racks you're installing in this project?
Yeah, so currently in the existing campus where ServiceNow is, they also run shuttles via Chariot. So they are also trying to reduce the traffic count to their campus. In all of our campuses, we offer shower facilities to promote bike or just other modes of transportation to the campus. And so that would be part of this expansion on this West Campus. Again, we're still discussing with ServiceNow their needs for this campus, but in all of our new projects, we've included shower facilities, bike storage throughout.
So Governor Brown has a target of 1.5 million electric vehicles by 2025, 5 million electric vehicles by 2030, which means 25% by 2030 of cars in California will be electric. And the best place to charge is at home and at work. And so I'm concerned about the ability to support that many. You're putting a lot of parking spots in here to support those electric vehicles, and then also just the climate impacts of all of these people, because there's no housing right nearby here.
Correct.
Yeah.
So ServiceNow, what they have done on their current campus and what they would continue to do on the West Campus is electric cars, take a few hours to charge. They don't take all 8 hours.
Yeah.
So they rotate cars in and out so they can charge. What we've also done in our new campuses is future proofing and putting in conduit for additional EV charging stations as the demand grows, as the EV cars and chargers are more prevalent.
Do you have a target? Do you have a target for this new facility of what you're going to put in?
No, not yet. But we typically shoot for the higher end because that's kind of where the tenant demands are.
Can I throw out some numbers that you can sort of chew on?
Yes, definitely.
So I would like to see, you think about 6% installed and 15% conduit, up to the total being 15% of pre-wired, basically.
Pre-wired,
yeah. So to mitigate the climate impacts, the carbon impacts of all this traffic, because there's no housing here and people are going to basically be driving. And then, I know that Google has a drive-alone rate target of 45% for their north of Bayshore. And I'm just trying to figure out if you are trying to reduce the number of people driving alone on your campuses, you know, with incentives, TDM measures, and so on, that will get, you know, VMT reductions ideally of like 15%. Yeah.
Yes, as part of our, you know, the extension, the First Amendment, we did agree to, you know, a TDM for this project. We've also, as Xander mentioned, paid the local transportation fee for this new West Campus without ever building the West Campus yet. So
Right.
we are trying to contribute to the solution of traffic in the area.
Yeah, it just, you know, conditions have gotten worse. As you know, 30% of Bay Area people are considering moving out of the Bay Area just because of housing prices and traffic. And, you know, a campus like this needs to basically be helping our traffic situation, you know. So, you know, I'm not comfortable with a 5% VMT reduction. It just seems too low these days. So anyway, those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chahal.
Yes, hi, Jolie Houston with Berliner Cohen. There are conditions of approval for the TDM, and those are conditions of approval, and I don't think we should start considering those as CEQA mitigation measures because there has been an addendum prepared for this project. So the addendum found that there were no traffic impacts, and I'm concerned that the Planning Commission is imposing mitigation measures to an addendum that has found no traffic impacts. So I do have a concern about that, but it could be, I'm sure your attorney's going to say something. There's some, also as part of this development agreement, you know, it has the conditions of approval and it has the site development plan and the PD zoning, and those have all been incorporated with the development agreement. But you should note that also the developer contributed $100,000 to the Housing Trust Fund, so that was one more benefit to the city. And I'll let you respond to that. I'm a little concerned because we do have an addendum that found no additional traffic mitigation was required.
Well, if I understood Commissioner Shahal's question, it was whether we could impose new terms in the development agreement if the developer agreed to those terms. So if the commission, for instance, suggested 10% TDM and the developer agreed to it, there's nothing stopping that from happening.
Thank you for clarifying that because that was my understanding as well. Now, the money that they've already contributed, if this agreement expires, do we need to pay back anything?
No.
I see, okay. Let's see now. We were going to have Commissioner Chahal speak, and I would like to ask the applicant to follow the chair's recommendation on who has the floor. And Commissioner Chahal has the floor right now.
Thank you. So, as mentioned by other commissioners, like development agreement is a mutual agreement between city and the developer, and if we are extending it, we have every right to, hopefully we have every right to change it when we extend it, basically. Otherwise it expires and then we can renegotiate the agreement. So things have changed since 2013, like traffic, as mentioned by Commissioner Surds, we need VMT reduction to 15%, and traffic is really a big problem. In addition to traffic, which was already pointed out, I would like are you ready to give some volunteer affordable housing fees to the city? Because affordable housing is gone bad to worse. And we are just putting a request as per the new agreement. Are you open to giving something more to the city for these changes, because if we are extending this thing, we are trying to gain something out of it so that it's mutually beneficial for both the parties.
It'd be something that we could look into and evaluate potentially, yes.
But that doesn't help us to make a decision today about it. Like, I know that's a positive answer.
We can make a set of recommendations,
Okay.
include those conditions as part of the recommendation to the council, I believe.
Yeah, okay. Can you throw a
but-
number, just a?
But doesn't the applicant have to agree on the terms today
Well,
before we vote on a recommendation?
technically, no. I mean, you could recommend a development agreement to the council that the applicant has absolutely no intention of signing. It would be best if you get some buy-in from the applicant, so it at least has a chance of getting signed once it gets approved. I would suggest that you get some sort of at least tentative enthusiasm from the applicant.
So we'll take a 5-minute recess. You can think about it and give us some numbers right now.
Oh, wait. Before we do the recess, we may do the recess, but let's do this one at a time. Commissioner Chihawa, are you finished with your questions? Okay, thank you. Commissioner O'Halloran.
Okay. My question is really just one of curiosity. Sobrato, obviously a large group, and you're the owner, and so you rent out the property currently. Is that the normal procedure for Sobrato? Is that
Correct.
your business? Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
It's a rented office, okay. Commissioner Kelly.
You know, I understand that it is pretty typical for developers to be coming back. They don't know how fast projects can be built out due to economic cycles. And we do appreciate your contribution to the Housing Trust. But we're also dealing with a public that is very concerned about housing right now, about traffic concerns. And I know you most likely can't give us an answer today. If you can suggest something today, that would be great. But we would like, you know, when you come in front of the council, to have something that you can indicate to the council to offset some of the severe impacts we're seeing right now due to growth. Obviously, housing's impact, traffic's impact, the environment being impacted. So if you want to increase the efficiency in the final leg of the development, items like that do sway, and it does help the public know that these meetings do have impact, and we are getting a good working relationship with the people that build in our city. So when we take a break, if you want to suggest something, that's great. But if not, we would love to hear that you came to council with some suggestion on how your company would like to mitigate some of the impacts that we're seeing right now due to the rapid growth in this area. So it's just a suggestion. I'm not saying we're requiring it, but I think everybody is hearing a mouthful from residents about housing and traffic right now.
Again, you know, an addendum was done to analyze the impact of this project specifically, and so there isn't a added impact that hasn't already been contemplated in the city analysis. So that's why we weren't prepared to come in to discuss additional mitigations, because that was already discussed in the previous 13 addendum.
When you say addendum, you're speaking of 2013 addendum.
The 2013.
Nothing with this round of.
Just for clarification, 2008 EIR 2013 MND,
Yep,
2018 Addendum. 3 separate documents.
right.
EIR, MND.
Because I remember
addendum.
last time you guys were here. That was like the first year I was on the commission. Yeah, that's right, we were.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Kelly, are you done? Okay, thank you. All right, I have a few questions too. So, you said that you started negotiating about the West Campus with ServiceNow 2 months ago, but you had the MND 5 years ago. So why wait until 2 months ago to have this discussion? They weren't growing their business, they weren't interested in expanding their campus, or?
Yeah, it wasn't 2 months ago, it was a few months ago we started this conversation. But yes, it's, it was accommodating their growth. They didn't see a need for growth in the past, since 13 until recently. The company has been expanding quickly. And so therefore they've reached out to us, seeing the expansion option over on the West Campus.
And so right now, to your company, ServiceNow is the only tenant that you have in mind for the West Campus?
Currently, yes, because we're in discussions with them.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you are holding on to this land in hopes that ServiceNow will come to you and say, oh, we want the West Campus. And that finally happened recently, and until then, Sobrado was willing to just sit on this land without developing it.
Well, it could have been ServiceNow, it could have been another tenant. The Silicon Valley has had a lot of growth recently, but in the downturn, it took a little time to kind of get back on its feet. And so, we've held this. We are long-term holders of real estate. And so, we're not looking to build just for the sake of building. We're looking to build to create the right product for the market and the right product for our tenant. And so, we wanted to make sure that, this could be an opportunity for ServiceNow or another, Santa Clara-based company that wanted to expand.
So in your mind, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the future? But if ServiceNow ends up saying that, whoops, we don't need this new campus, then are you just going to sit on this land again, or?
Yeah. So what we would probably do, if we are granted, this 2-year extension, we would work through the details with ServiceNow to see if there is a potential expansion option for them. If there is not, we'll let the DA expire, and then we'll go back and reevaluate what we do with this land.
I see. And does ServiceNow currently run any shuttle service like other tech companies? Except besides Chariot?
They run through Chariot.
So it's
they
basically outsourced the shuttle service. Okay. Okay, those are my questions. All right, so we've been having back and forth with the applicant, but has the staff had a chance to review the documents and answer the questions? And let me recap what the questions are. So if we were to let this DA expire, what do we gain and what do we lose? And what does PD conditions, what are the overlaps between the PD conditions and the DA document?
Yes, and the answers to those questions are actually, as it turns out, remarkably simple.
Oh.
All of the PD conditions are expressly incorporated into the DA.
Okay.
So the exact same conditions would apply whether or not you renew this. So frankly, we're not losing much as a city if you end up not renewing this. One of the conditions, as you know, is that they do a TDM plan that would reduce trips by 5%. 5%. Under the climate action plan, if they were subject to it today, they'd be required to do a 10% TDM plan. So the requirements would be slightly more stringent if the DA expired and they were subject to the standard climate action plan. Their conditions of approval do require them to employ green building standards designed to meet LEED 2009 checklists. It doesn't require that they be LEED certified, that they go through the LEED certification process. And it doesn't require any specific level of LEED certification like gold or platinum or anything like that.
Okay.
The main benefit for the city in entering into the 2008 agreement, though, was simply the traffic fee, the hundreds of thousands that we already got. I think it was around 300 something, $368,000. That has already been paid. We would not refund that if the DA expired. That's a done deal. So basically, the DA expires, they still have their PD hanging on because they built half the project, so they could theoretically continue to build. But we might be able to impose the stricter TDM plan. You are free to attempt to negotiate at the dais.
Even after this DA expires, there's nothing to stop them from building the West Campus. But if Sobrato, the applicant wants to work with the city, then we may want to discuss the potentials for higher TDM requirements, specific LEED standard, and other things that the commissioners have expressed interest in.
Yes, one big asterisk I have to put on this is that unfortunately, this is the last possible date that you can make this decision.
Okay.
This has to go to City Council next Tuesday in order for the DA extension to be effective before the existing DA expires. So you're free to attempt to discuss terms tonight, but it has to be tonight.
So how long is a PD good for? I mean, that has expiration sometime, right?
No, it is
There's none?
zoning. It is the zoning for the property. Now, our PD ordinance says if you never start, if 2 years go by and you haven't even started, then it reverts to what it was before.
Half,
but here they already locked it in, so
it's locked
they
in
could
forever.
pretty much still build. Of course, that I mean, in theory, the city council tomorrow could rezone this as R16L. I mean, that would be perfectly legal. The DA prohibits the city council from doing that.
Oh.
So it's an advantage to the developer to have the development agreement because it truly locks their zoning for the period of time.
Oh, so the council can take away that PD
Yes.
if they want to?
Yes.
If the DA expires?
Yeah, once the DA expires, certainly.
Okay, now I understand the background. Can you recap on the fees again? Because so many of us asked different questions, so I've lost track.
Okay, so under the 2008 DA, they were required to pay something like $368,000 in local traffic fees. Those fees have been paid. They are non-refundable. Under the DA proposed extension, they will also be subject to a regional traffic fee of $2.50 per square foot, which will amount to something like $768,000, if I remember the number. There will likely be an increase in that regional traffic fee in June. They will be exempt from that increase. If the DA is extended.
Okay.
The Water and Sewer Utilities Department is anticipating adopting a new water and sewer connection fee in June. That is not currently in existence. It would be a fee of general applicability, so actually they'll be subject to it whether you extend this or not. This expressly calls out that they have to comply with it.
So the only thing is, only pertinent fee is traffic.
The only, I'm sorry?
Only pertinent fee to the
is the regional traffic fee
that we're discussing is the traffic fee. Okay, understand, thank you. Okay, all right, so I think we understand the issue better. So do we have any motion to, Commissioner Jane? Is that you?
So, yes. So I'm still concerned about the nexus fees or the housing fees, you know, the fees that were just adopted.
Yes.
Now, because they started the project, they're not subject to any of those? They're grandfathered into all of those? Okay.
We have a specific schedule for the phase-in of the affordable housing fees. This one would be way before any of the applicable dates. But that's something you could ask them to add, certainly.
Okay, okay. Very good, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Kelly?
All right, just so I understand, the regional traffic fee, they will be subject to that even if we approve this, correct? Or they won't be?
They will be subject to the new fee imposed by the city council in June if you do not approve this. If you do approve this, they will be subject to a $2.50 regional traffic fee.
And that's for the additional square footage?
Yes,
And does anybody have a ballpark of what that is?
$768,000.
You said it's going to go up to 4, most likely.
Yes,
2.5 to 4.
you're making me do math. I went to law school, so I wouldn't have to do math. What's the square footage? Is it
306.
306? So 1.2 million if it was the $4. And then it's 765,000 under the lower fee, the $2.50.
Additional 500, 450.
Okay. That answered my question. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to close.
No. Motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Are we confident that there's no one else in the
Else have
audience?
questions?
are you done?
I'm done with my question. That was it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Commissioner Chaha?
So, as mentioned, like the VMT reduction has to be 10% now if we going forward, right? And we have two major requests, basically. Can we increase the VMT to 15%? And as far as the regional traffic fees are concerned, developer Subrota will save $500,000. And
Let's clarify, that's your request, so
yeah,
not us, but
no,
you
no,
personally.
My request, I'm
Yes.
trying to negotiate on behalf of city as
Sure.
one planning commissioner.
Sure.
Right. So, and
I'm sure other commissioners have things to say too.
right. So you're saving something, and we can. The city needs to have some part of that share so that we can improve our infrastructure or traffic thing. And the third part is the affordable housing. So between these three, two are the numbers basically, which are concrete dollar amounts, and the VMT is percentage of what we get into. So can you throw a number which you can, voluntary affordable housing number you can contribute towards the city? And also, whether you can club those two things together, voluntary housing and the traffic fees, what you can help out with the city?
Yeah, at this point in time, I can't strike a deal at the dais. I would need to kind of go back and reevaluate this project.
So what I think might happen with the way we're going to proceed with this recommendation to the council today is that the Planning Commission will come up with a set of recommendations on the conditions that will attach to whatever recommendation we'll make to the council, and that issue, the applicant will study those conditions that we propose and perhaps be ready to discuss that when the council takes up this matter. That's the only way I see this happening. Yes?
That's acceptable.
Okay, all right. Okay, anybody else? Commissioner Salem?
Is there any way to legally and reasonably simplify the process to say that we could recommend the extension if the applicant was willing to pay the fees at current levels and make up the difference from the previous fees that were paid, so that it's sort of getting it out of the bank? The property's been there for 10 years. You can't take it and get a free pass on all of the changes since then. Do you understand the question?
But the only fee in question right now is the traffic
No, I was
fee.
just suggesting that to simplify it and say all current fees, as if this was a brand-new project as of today, not at the June levels, which I understand are going up, but at the today levels. So they gain some benefit out of the fact that the extension happens, the fees and mitigations are locked in at today's levels instead of having this expire and be renegotiated in June at the higher levels. That way, both parties feel there's been some advancement on the process. It's a question if that is
Okay,
a reasonable
I
request.
hear what you're saying, and let me, okay. I think you know, your question should be addressed by the staff, but what I'm hearing is that the only difference between now and there basically isn't any difference. The only difference in fee that might go into effect is the new traffic fee in June. Otherwise, everything is the same as what I'm hearing. But is that correct?
These aren't the same as 2013, right?
But everything else is going to be at the current.
Only the regional traffic fee.
All right, I understand, thank you.
Okay, all right.
But I understand what I think Commissioner Salem is saying is give them credit for the fee, the local traffic fee that's been paid. I don't know if that's going up as well, the local.
Yes, that actually will go up as well. We weren't going to impose the local traffic fee since they've already paid it for the entire project.
So there would, well, if this expired, technically they would owe the balance then of when they pull the building permits, correct?
But they already paid the entire local traffic fee, is my understanding.
Oh, okay,
For the entire
so-
square footage of the project, even though they haven't pulled building permits for the second phase yet.
Okay,
So they wouldn't be subject to that. But yeah,
so that's a different fee then, yeah,
but the regional traffic fee, that is the current amount.
That's the
50.
only amount, and that hasn't changed. That is going to change in June, but not at this point. No, not yet.
Correct.
Okay. So did that answer your question, Commissioner Sala? Okay.
Basically,
All right.
it sounds like it's either let it expire or done.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Any motion to close public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Discussions. Commissioner Kelly.
Okay. Since I deal with contracts all the time, sometimes we have to do extensions. I'm sensitive to the fact that we're imposing additional costs to the developer. I've been here the longest, and typically when developers already broken ground and done like phase 1, phase 2, and they're looking at doing phase 3, and they're asking for a period of time to do phase 3, we've granted it without any additional cost. The period that they're asking, about another 2 years, doesn't seem unreasonable. But I am, like everybody else, I feel the pain of being in traffic. So I'm going to suggest that we approve it as is, but ask council and give the applicant a suggestion that he maybe make a proposal if he feels it's economically possible, because I understand, being in business myself, that you have to work with your tenant, you got to look at if it makes financial sense, and being a good citizen or good business in the community, you do make contributions when it's possible. So because the term is not 10 years out or even 5 years out, I'm okay with just extending it without adding additional fees, but I'll leave it at, I think, if it's possible, the applicant would
gain favor on all future projects with us and the council if they listen to us, because we're listening to the concerns of residents who tell us all the time, don't approve any more projects or expansions because the traffic's so bad. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Halloran.
Yeah, I think I'd probably be going along that same way. I think this isn't meaning to single out Sobrato, because I know all the contributions Sobrato makes to the community. I have more concern about our own process of continually renewing projects and holding up everything. I do feel that we block up other opportunities in the meantime. I think if they had asked for more than 2 years, I'd probably have a different opinion, but I think the 2 years indicates some intention to going forward and getting the job done rather than extending this on there. So I would go along with your suggestion of, and wait for somebody else to make particular conditions if they're willing to do that in a recommendation to the council.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chahal.
Okay, so Commissioner Kelly mentioned the additional cost to developer, and my point is things have changed dramatically since 2013, both for the residents as well as for the developers. Like property rates have gone skyrocketed since 2013, and issues residents are facing, like the traffic and affordable housing, that has gone bad to worse. So I'll come up with the like conditions which I can think of right now, which are middle ground sort of. Like we changed the regional traffic fees to 3.25, and VMT reduction to, okay, we wanted 15, but at least if they have PD, they have 10 anyway. So at least increase that to 10.
But 10, no, 5.
They have 5 right now.
Oh,
But if they go to PD without that, they get 10 only.
Okay.
They have to, so I'm
okay,
just
I'll
keeping that
follow,
as
I'll
10.
follow you. Thank
Keeping it that to 10.
10? Keep it
10, right. And I, like, Sobrato is as Commissioner O'Halloran mentioned, they are good community players, so we really need funds for our affordable housing. And if we can contribute, say, $500,000 towards that, that's my request from that, for the motion. And I know these are not binding on the developer, but at least we are sending a signal or sending a real concrete numbers to the council that, okay, this was requested from the planning commission, and they have a time between now and the council hearing so that they can also have some numbers which we are throwing up, concrete numbers to look at those. So those are my 3 changes for amendments to for approval.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jane.
In the MND, there was a mention of maybe going to lead gold. I would like to make a recommendation to council that they commit to lead gold equivalent. They don't have to go through the cost of the certification, but it should be lead gold equivalent, and that should be a commitment. And I would like to stick with the proposal of electric vehicle 6% installed and 15% pre-wired.
All right, Commissioner O'Halloran?
Yes, it's just a question for staff. On the affordability agreements that we have in place now, those apply to non-residential units?
Do you mean the fee or
The percent?
No, that only is on residential right now to provide the actual units. When the housing impact, the affordable housing impact fee goes into effect, there will be a square foot charge on all land uses, so including industrial or office R&D.
And under the ordinance that we adopted, the amount for office buildings of this size is $6.67 per square foot for applications until January, from July of this year until January of next year. After January of next year, it'll be $20 per square foot.
So currently, those don't apply, period.
They don't apply at all.
At 6.6, what would be the amount?
667, if hypothetically they were subject to this, 667
Because
times
Commissioner Chahal's asking for 500,000.
306,000 square feet times 667 is $2 million.
2 million.
If they were subject to the full $20 fee, 6.1 million.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? Okay, let's see if I have questions.
But keep in mind, the DA goes away. None of those will apply because they're already approved. The PD's already approved.
I understand. We understand. I don't have any questions. I asked all the questions. Okay, so let me summarize what I'm hearing. Commissioner Kelly is asking, believes that the DA can be extended for 2 years as is, but he would like to ask the applicant to consider what they can do to contribute to mitigating traffic. Commissioner O'Halloran feels that the 2-year extension is reasonable. Commissioner Chahal believes that 2-year extensions should be is acceptable, except he thinks that maybe we can work something out with a traffic fee, VMT, and affordable housing. Mainly, traffic fee be at 3.25 instead of the current 2.5. VMT being 10%, which is what the applicant will be obligated should the DA expire and the PD agreement kicks in, what remains in place.
They would not be subject to the TDM at 10%. It's not applicable because the project's already approved.
Oh.
They would have no obligation.
Right.
Other than, I'm sorry, the 5% is in the conditions of approval, so then they would
That's
be
right.
still obligated to that.
That's correct.
Okay, if that expires, what does the PD agreement
So the
say?
PD conditions of approval still apply, so they will still be subject to the 5%
5%.
TDM.
It's not
If it was a
10%.
new application today, they'd have to do a 10%
10 for the
TDM.
PD, okay.
But in a DA, again, you can agree to anything, so they could voluntarily agree to do 10%.
Okay, I misunderstood, thank you. All right, and also affordable housing contribution of 500,000. And Commissioner Jane wants the applicant to, so 2-year extension is reasonable, except I'd like to ask the applicant to commit to meeting the gold standard equivalent without the requirement to do the certification, and to do pre-wire parking spots, 15% of parking spots, and to install charger on 6% of the parking spots. And okay, so those are the opinions that have been voiced. And all right, so I think I've summarized everybody's opinion. So would somebody like to make a motion? Okay, Commissioner Chahal?
I'll make a motion to recommend to City Council to approve this development agreement amendment with the changes as we discussed. If you want, we can say it again, but
We have it all.
you have it, all the changes as we have, like 3.25 regional traffic charge fees, VMT to 10%, volunteer affordable housing fees to $500,000. Contribution, $500,000, and equivalent of gold standard, and then total 6% installed and another 9% conduit, total 15% of that. And did I miss anything?
What you be charging?
I thought you said 15% overall pre-wired.
Overall.
Or did you mean
9% ready to go, 6% pre-wired.
I thought you said 15%.
6% installed.
Installed.
With an
15
additional
wired.
9% conduited.
Okay, 9%.
6% wired, I said.
Pre-wired.
Ready to.
Rewired.
Yep, yeah.
Okay, any seconds?
Second?
Second.
Who said it first? Commissioner Kelly. All right, any discussions?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Halloran.
I think these are a lot of conditions, but I think at the same point, this is just a recommendation to council, and I think it gives Sobrato enough time to consider and present alternatives or whether they want to do any at all. So I would be in favor of the recommendation that we have council look at those.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
So that motion passes, and that will be a recommendation to City Council for the 27th.
No, April 4th,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tuesday,
Let me say
Yeah.
April, okay.
lickety split.
April 4th.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next item, which is public presentation. Would any member of the public like to speak on any matter that's not on the agenda? Yes. And if you'd like to give us your name, you're welcome to do so.
George Tsai. Commissioners and Chairwoman, just a quick refresher. On March 14th meeting, I was invited by the Chairwoman to bring to attention to the Commission about the unique zoning situation regarding my property that was creating some practical difficulties and hardship for adding an addition. After the meeting, I submitted a formal request to the Commission. That was March 15th. I was wondering if there was an update for me regarding the submitted request, specifically if there has been a planner officially assigned to the request, and just to give an idea to see when it might be agendized for the Planning Commission to act upon. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the staff have any information?
Yes, John Davidson is actually working on this request, and it should be brought forward on the next agenda.
Oh, thank you. You met John?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we will see you again then. Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the public? I don't see anybody else. All right. Let's move on to reports of commission, board liaison, and committee. Announcements and other items first. Anybody? All right. Oh,
I put a request in here, but now I have to do it over here. Okay.
you did?
Yes, today I was noticed that I have a PRA request against me, and I have the onerous task of going through 3 different email systems to find all communications between me and the city. So again, I want to emphasize that this is a very painful process, and I only have a week to do this, and it would have been facilitated had I had a city-issued email address that the city could just mine and fulfill this request. So I'm asking if there's any update on getting city-issued emails for commissions.
Okay, I guess staff member Avallo was going to give us an update today.
Yes,
So do you-
the only information I have is that IT is working on it. I'm not sure why it's taking so long, but I've been following up, and they assured me that they are looking into it. So hopefully you will have those soon.
Okay, so when you say IT is working on it, that means that the city has made a decision to give us all our private email accounts. I mean, not city email accounts.
I don't know that for sure. I
Oh.
know that, yeah, that they are looking into it. So it's what I'm told.
Who's going to make that decision?
I think that's another thing that they're trying to figure out. As we mentioned before, there are some a procedure that needs to be set up for the commissioners since you're not on campus, you're not on site. There are different things that are involved that need to figure out about setting up the passwords and just different things that go involved with issuing the emails.
Okay, has anybody from IT been assigned to this particular request?
I don't have that information.
Okay. Can we find out more?
I have been trying to find out. This is all I've been told at the moment, that they're working on it. So I will continue to follow up with them and keep you updated.
Okay, then can I ask more specific questions, which is, number one, who is the decision maker? Number two, are we going to assign somebody to make this happen? And number three, can we, if the person, somebody is assigned, then presumably there's going to be a deadline. So can we find out those three things?
I will take those notes and pass them along to my director.
Okay, but this is not a decision to be made by, this is what I'm hearing is that this is not a community development issue. Okay, next, there was another question. So I guess we made a recommendation as a planning commission to that we'd like to have our own email addresses, but the city was going to look into whether this should happen to other commissions as well. So has that issue been taken up?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information. This is all I'm telling you. This is all I know at the moment.
Okay.
But I will follow up with your questions.
Okay. I don't want to sound harsh, and I don't want this to be perceived as a personal, question on what you're doing personally. But these are the things that I think needs to happen in any organization. I work for organization setting too. So if you could, from what I'm hearing, nothing has really happened. So.
Yes, I don't know why it's taking so long. Like I said, I followed up, and this is what they're telling me, that they're looking into it. So.
But what I'm saying is that nothing's going to happen unless somebody is assigned to this, and that somebody unless it becomes somebody's action item. So how can we make that happen? And I'm asking all these questions because we've been asking for this for months now.
Yes, well, unfortunately, I'm just a clerical person. All I do is take notes and pass the information along, so this is all I can do for you. So I apologize. I have no control over the procedures.
Okay, all right. So let me ask Ms. Sierra, is this something that you can follow up on?
I can certainly try. I think, first of all, this is the whole issue about issuing city email addresses to boards and commissioners is really a policy matter. So I know initially it was referred to the governance committee because it would have to be like a citywide policy, whether or not that takes place. And at the very least, it's going to be at the city manager's level. But I think ultimately it's probably good to have council input, whether or not appointed commissioners would, as representatives, have email addresses and respond, to whoever is inquiring to you, because we are city officials, we're employees, so we have a select responsibility, whereas you serve at the pleasure of the council. So what interaction, the communications you would have with the public, I think is a question, because you may or may not have enough information to give an official response, and I think that's going to be part of the decision. So
has the governance committee taken up on this issue?
I think it went there as a referral to at least make the motion. Like, I think it was presented there, but I think it was brought into. It was supposed to be on the council priority setting as one of the action items to be done. I know the council. the city manager's office trying to get all the boards and commission to create work plans so that the workflow is organized and priorities are set for boards and commissions that basically have work to do to prepare, be involved in different aspects of your role. It's like working on specific plans or cultural events, whatever is the case. But I think that was one of the items that had to be addressed. But whether or not it's going to be dealt with immediately, or it's going to be in the course of a work plan of, for the governance committee is another matter. So
is there anywhere we can bring this up with, because it's been on the agenda for a while? Now we have Commissioner Jane, who is going to have the material impact on his personal time and his, accountability, and a bunch of, he's facing a real issue now. So
Well,
mean,
I think,
So-
well, the city manager's office and the city clerk's office is aware that this request has come forward because they're the ones that coordinate the PRAs in the city attorney's office. So they're aware these impacts occur. But where it's at with all the other priorities that the city has, I don't know. So we can try to find out that information, and if there's an expected timeline for a response. I think that's probably the best we could do for you, because, again, we do not set that policy. It's going to be some determination involving the city council, since, again, you are appointed by the city council.
okay, all right,
So
Commissioner
I-
Salam?
While we're both waiting to talk, can this be agendized on the city council so that they can direct action to be pursued?
Again, we don't have any ability to agendize on it. We have to refer that to the city manager's office to request it.
We can't request the city council to review this issue and have action taken?
You can include something in your minutes, and if there's an action item, it needs to be called out, but whether or not it gets set on an agenda is another matter. Because, we can't place things on an agenda without clearance from the city manager's office. So it all,
Nobody wants to
There-
take
there is a- there is
responsibility
an-
for any of it.
well, no, there's an indefinite pending list of items, and because there has to be staffing involved, there has to be, again, preparation of the information and the vetting, and so whenever that's ready, that would go forward. I don't know if the city attorney has anything else you want to share about how the process works, essentially.
It's largely a mystery to me, but I certainly advocate for email addresses for planning commissioners.
So should we
So-
write to the city
so-
manager, or should we go to the council and speak at the
So-
public?
So I went to the
Okay, Commissioner
governance,
Jane.
I went to the governance committee to ask them for this.
Oh, you
and-
did?
And a few of the council members were surprised that planning commissioners even meet with developers. So they weren't aware that there was any need for this until I brought it up. And so they sort of took it under advisement, but it didn't seem like it lit any fires under them, so.
How about if we all write to city manager? Does that sound like a reasonable thing to do? Okay, I'll write a letter tomorrow, and I encourage everyone to do so. Oh, Commissioner Chahal.
In the circumstances where Mr. Jain is right now, and city has all his emails, can the city provide you all the
All
help?
my emails. They don't have my emails.
No, which you sent to the city, right? Oh, you're talking about the third party, not the city. I
Well,
thought you're
no,
only
it's,
asking
it's.
your
ema-
communication
it's
with the planning.
emails between me and the city, and then
Okay.
between me and developers and things.
Okay, okay. I thought maybe city can help you out at least with the city part. Whatever email you sent to planning department, at least you don't need to do that homework. They can help you out with that.
I'm planning to contact the IT department to find out what help I can get, because it is pretty.
But my personal recommendation is that you
Yeah,
do the
you should.
final review yourself. Okay, so anything else on this? Okay, what's the, I don't have my agenda anymore. Let's see. Okay, so, wait, let's, I don't want to beat the
I-
dead horse, but we haven't really decided what to do besides, everybody's encouraged to write to the city manager. So, what else is there to do? That's it?
I said the chair should write to the city manager at this stage.
Okay, I will write to the city manager, and I will copy
behalf of
everyone
our-
on that letter. I think it's okay to do that because the matter was discussed at this meeting, and that, can we ask let's say that the letter goes up by the end of this week. Can we rely on the staff to follow up with the city manager and come back with the update at the next planning commission meeting? Is that a reasonable request? Yes?
We can try, it, yeah. I mean, all I can do is submit the request and see if we get a response.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's it for this, this matter then, for now. Board of committee assignments?
Yeah, I had a question. There's
Oh,
There's
okay.
an emergency.
Commissioner Jane.
There's an emergency ARC meeting or something?
Oh, on April 4th.
What,
Special meeting.
yeah.
So,
And why do we have to do
well,
that, or?
and I should clarify, I think we were expecting Commissioner Salem to attend, so he could follow up with the item. This was regarding only 1075 Pomeroy.
Right.
So since he stepped in to continue the conversation and conclude the final design, and then that final design would be forwarded to City Council with a formal recommendation from the AC.
Okay.
So
'cause
can Commissioner Salem attend? Okay, thank you.
Very good.
All right.
Already committed.
Yep, thank you. All right. Yeah.
So is it appropriate that we have a motion and vote to have you author the letter with the implied consent of those here to sign our names to your request for the email? Is that a
Let me do this. I will write the letter, and then in that letter, I will mention that this has been a ongoing concern for a long time, and that many commissioners are expressing frustration. And I think that represents your voice without you having to actually approve what I write, I think. I mean,
grant you
well, yeah,
the right
thank you.
to put my
Well, thank
name
you. I
on it?
appreciate that.
My preference is
Okay.
just the chair signs it.
Thank you. All right. All right, so, okay, so that's it for the architectural committee, unless somebody else has anything to say, then let's, any commissioner travel training coming up? Okay, so,
Have a comment?
yep,
I want to say I did attend park dedication March 22nd on, it's still called the Central Park Annex. And it was very, very interesting. Mayor Gilmore's comment with it. We've now had 40 parks in the city, which are quite a few on it. And I'm sure stressing there. I did want to make a comment in our own neighborhood park, Parkway Park, that we, for the last 5 years, have tried to contribute money to the Parks Department and then have a service day, service project. And we've had a sign. We put up a sign this year, and we apparently were in violation of having a sign. So we had a sign, you threatening $750 if we didn't take the sign down. This is a sign asking for donations that would immediately go to the city on there. So instead, we were able to get a special permit. I guess it still needs to go to the city council which cost us $246. So it's $246 would have gone to the city in any case. I'm not sure if there's any way to ask the planning department to give those to the Parks Department. No?
Goes in the general fund.
Okay, so I guess basically, it's just a personal comment on it. But we do have a lot of parks, which I think a lot of people pride themselves on. And it was part of this Kylie Central Annex that was approved quite a while ago.
thank you. Commissioner Kelly.
Fort Bay presentation. Okay, so on Tuesday, I found out that on the Valco project, because Cupertino would not cooperate, the developer is going to use a state SB 35, I believe, to go ahead and put half of the housing affordable in the project, is my understanding. And that also will be multi-story, I believe 5 to 6 stories, based on the renderings they show online. So
my question to staff here is, are we going to be looking at our plan, which I believe last year we were supposed to look at for Stevens Creek? Because San Jose is now looking at 8 stories at Fort Bay. We're looking at 5 to 6 stories at the Hills of Valco, and we still haven't looked at updating our plan for Stevens Creek.
Well, if you're referring to the implications of SB 35, Santa Clara, like Cupertino, like almost all cities in the Bay Area, was determined by HCD to be subject to this new 50% rule. Cities that have not achieved a certain percentage of their regional housing needs assessment will have to approve projects that are consistent with the zoning where 50% of the units are designated as affordable. So that's what's happening in Cupertino. Sandhill has proposed developing at Valco with 50% affordable units for something like 2,400 units. That doesn't authorize a developer to build a 100-story building. They would still be subject to our height limits, but they could build with no discretionary approval and with no CEQA. But again, that's a bitter pill. 50% for a lot of developers simply doesn't pencil out. I don't think we're opening the floodgates, but we are definitely subject to that risk.
My point being is, I believe it was a year and a half ago, we were told we were going to be looking at our plan for Stevens Creek. San Jose has their plan for Stevens Creek, but we haven't looked at our plan for Stevens Creek. But I was told a year and a half ago we were going to.
Are you talking about any specific plan?
A specific plan that it was going to be coming in front of the Planning Commission and never materialized.
No, that's, we have a focus there. There's a Stevens Creek focus area, but it has very minimal amount of residential. So there isn't anticipated, I did check with our staff, and there isn't any direction to move forward with a specific plan beyond what the focus area provides in the general plan currently.
Okay. I guess then the only comment, because I know San Jose would like to extend the bike lanes along Stevens Creek from Cupertino all the way down. It would be nice if Santa Clara would have something that complements what they would like to do to improve pedestrian travel along Stevens Creek.
Right. I have to inquire with our traffic division, but I'm sure that always is the goal, to work cooperatively with interagency for facilities like bike lanes. So
okay.
We can.
Every time I go to the other side on one of these projects that are going to happen on the San Jose side, the San Jose planning staff say, we would like to do bike lanes, but we have to have a cooperative agreement with Santa Clara on doing these things. So it would be nice to be updated on what we're doing as far as Stevens Creek to making it pedestrian friendly, because it does appear that there's going to be continued development along Stevens Creek. And even though that we don't have a lot of residential, it would be nice to make it pedestrian friendly so people can go back and forth on both sides of the street.
Okay, well, we can check with our bike division, our transportation division, and see if there are plans for Stevens Creek for the bike paths, and get back to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner O'Halloran.
Yeah, I want to add to that same feeling I got from people. The biggest concern was traffic. What those projects are all San Jose projects, urban village types of projects. And the concern on the Santa Clara side is that you're affecting the impact of traffic on Stevens Creek, and you should take that into account. I know there was an editorial opinion by Mayor Gilmore and the mayor of Cupertino talking about getting together a consolidated traffic plan on Stevens Creek and also taking into account how do you fund that? And so biggest item, I think, in her discussion and makes sense is the traffic impact fees. And there's a question when Urban Villages was first put forward as an incentive for more housing, which is what we need, I think, in the county, was that they wouldn't have to pay an impact fee. So that's an issue as well. And I know there's been litigation over at the West Santana Row and everything about that, and I think the developers are going to be participating in it. But the toughest thing is just that things are looked at one at a time, and one at a time has a different impact than when you add them all together on there. And so that would be the question was, what is the traffic plan? I realize that's the traffic department that would look in it. And I believe they are, Director Eng is involved in that. But that is, again, just to repeat, it's a San Jose project, but has a big impact on Santa Clara, and the main impact is the traffic.
Thank you. I have one question. So the appointment of the new commissioner has been postponed? So when is that going to happen now?
Yeah, it was deferred to another meeting, but I don't know if it's been rescheduled.
The latest I heard was that interviews were taking place the Tuesday, not this coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. I think that's the 11th, April 11th. That was.
Yes. Yeah, they were available. I mean, the names were published, yeah, when it was originally scheduled, so they're just carrying over that group.
So we have some money allocated for the APA meeting in June for New Orleans?
I think it's May.
In May? So is that
Yes, those funds are available.
So the new whoever gets appointed still has an opportunity to go? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
There's money
Okay,
available.
because one slot has been allocated to Commissioner Kelly, but we have one open for, hopefully for this new commissioner, right? Yeah, okay, great. Commissioner Jane?
Along those lines, I was wondering if maybe every planning commission meeting, we could get a report of how much money is left in the account, because it's a kind of a use it or lose it thing. And this year we were very conservative about spending it. But last year, some commissioners had to pay out of their own pocket to go to events. So it would be nice to have a report of how much money was in there, and we could then figure out who can go where.
You know what the Cultural Commission does? If there's money left, the extra money goes to one of the nonprofits in the city. So, okay. Okay, Director of Community Development reports.
So since your last meeting.
Excuse me. Yes, Commissioner Salem?
I don't know which buttons to push anymore. So I had a question around the public outreach we did for the El Camino development at the library. Has there been any resulting reports or any kind of thing that we can go look at to see what the public input was on that?
I believe that Democracy Now! Is the results of those studies are published on the webpage for the El Camino Real specific plan. So if you, yeah, there. So and I can ask Anna McGill, who's the project manager for that. But yes, they are compiling all the responses, and so it should be there. But if you can't,
when they get an update, could they fire an email at us or something so we can go look at it rather than keep looking for?
I believe there. I don't know if they actually do it on those types of things, but that they would publish updates to the web page. But I don't know how frequent that is. So we can certainly get the latest for you or let you know.
Okay, Community Development Director.
Okay, so since your last meeting, there was one city council meeting, and that was March 20th. And the only item there was an overview of City Place, and that's the City Place Santa Clara. That's the 240 acres north of Tasman Drive. So the developer gave an overview on the process and the status of the project. So it's available, the video, if you want to see that online. So they're trying to move ahead.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, any motion to adjourn? Okay. Okay, so Commissioner Kelly makes a motion and seconded by Commissioner Jane. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where did you get stranded,
At the last
Steve?
meeting about your character award coming from the
Oh,
Boy
yeah,
Scouts.
that's right.
I was going to give more information to the other commissioners, and I will do that.
Oh, thank you very much. Themselves working.
It was brutal. It was really brutal.
Xander.
We carried it over after collecting a concise set of asks for the developer. I'm only there because I'm continuing it, but if you want to be involved, I would.
have already been to some of the hearings. I don't have
Oh,
I've been through those, and I'm pleased to pawn it off on you.
yeah, it was brutal.